Hi, I'm Tim Williams, lead litigation attorney here at the firm. In this segment, I'd like to discuss lumbar laminectomy. Typically, when someone has a herniated disc in the neck, the doctors would consider, among other things, a disc replacement surgery where they actually take the bad disc out. They put either a fake disc in there, artificial disc, or a fusion surgery where they're actually fusing those two levels together and putting a piece of bone in place of that disc and then essentially making two levels into one. When a herniation occurs in the low back, however, options are more limited, primarily because the low back is such a fulcrum and deals with so much pressure. When we're, for example, bending over, there's a lot more pressure applied to the lumbar spine than at the neck. So doctors are more cautious in terms of how they approach that, in the sense that they don't want to fuse two layers or two levels of the lumbar spine if they can help it, because they don't want that instrumentation or the metal that's in there used to fuse it to break, or the bones to break off. It's just a horrible situation if that were to ever occur. So what they do then is generally, with respect to the lumbar spine, with particular types of herniations, and every case is different, of course, but generally speaking, they consider a lumbar laminectomy. So I'll talk about that here in a second and show you. Here at the model, we have the entire spine. The head would be up here. Here's the neck, the mid-back, the low back, and then finally the sacrum. So we're going to focus on a disc herniation in the low back, because this is where we generally see this type of surgery. So then again, there's a lumbar spine, and now what's going to happen is they're going to add the discs to it. You see those filling in there? There we are, the discs, and then you see the nerves down here. So between each level of spinous process, there's this disc. Now here's the outer layer disc, is what's called the nucleus pulposus, the annulus. Annulus is a fibrous, hard material. It's still somewhat flexible, but it's much harder than the interior of the nucleus pulposus, which is a jelly-like material. The idea there being that the outer material is going to keep the jelly inside. The jelly is going to act as a shock absorber for the entire spine. Now, as we get older, this outer material tends to thin out. Okay, it's a natural aging process. It thins out, and then by doing that, the jelly-like material on the inside, the softer material, tends to scoot closer to the outer edge, because the outer edge is, again, that layer is thinning out, getting thinner towards the outside edge. And what that does is it leads the person to be more prone to what's called a herniation with an impact, such as a car crash or fall downstairs or something along those lines. A sudden impact of the low back with a thinned outer layer can lead easily to a disc herniation. And now, corollary in Oregon, just because someone has some level of degeneration and they're more prone to disc herniation, they're still just as protected as a person without that issue if the other person were to herniate their disc. So you're still equally protected under Oregon law, even though insurance carriers don't like to admit that or honor that. But the important part or important aspect of that to know is that you are, in fact, equally as protected as the person without that underlying condition that would lead them to be more susceptible to this type of injury. So getting back to our animation then, so you have your normal movement. Now what's happening here is the disc is degenerating. So we see this outer layer is now thinning. The jelly-like layer is getting closer to the edge. And again, that leads someone to be more susceptible to developing a herniation upon application of force. So it's thinning out, thinning out, thinning out. And finally, let's say they get involved in a car crash. They're hit from behind suddenly. It's a high-speed impact, and it busts through. It's like the dam bursting. Okay, so that outer layer is now broken through. And what happens, that jelly-like material, again, every time you step, every time you move, it's putting pressure on that, it's squishing it down. Well, if you now have a hole in the dam, where's that going to go? It's going to go out that hole, right? So that's what we call a disc herniation. So then it's now leaving the area it's supposed to be, and it's no longer contained. And when it does that, it puts pressure on, as you can see here. So what happens is the doctor would take this section of bone off so they can visualize it. Sometimes they actually drill a hole on either side so they can visualize it. But the important part is some bone material is removed so that the doctors can get in there and access this area. And you can see there's a herniation there, okay? And these are the nerve fibers or nerve bundles that extend down into your legs. So the herniation is pressing on these nerves and causing delayed nerve response or altered sensation, such as pain, numbness, tingling, things like that. So it is a pretty serious problem. So what the doctors do then is they create this pathway. Sometimes it's the entire thing they take off. Sometimes it's just a hole. in the foramina that they drill and can access through. But they go in and they tear out or they remove the herniation. Okay, so they remove the jelly-like material that's squished out. The idea there being it's no longer pressing or aggravating this nerve, the nerve bundles. So it's now removed. The nerves are back into place, and at least in theory, the person is then relatively back to their normal activities. They no longer have the pain down the legs or the numbness or the tingling down the legs. The idea there being that they remove the problem portion and hopefully the person will get back to normal. Now the issue there also is that, again, with that outer layer now ruptured, it doesn't always heal. And so they could be prone to additional herniations down the line. And as that material continues to exit the disc itself, the disc gets thinner and thinner, and it can cause issues with the nearby joints having too much pressure applied and becoming painful and aggravated, so on and so forth. So it can be a downward spiral, but thankfully medicine has advanced to the point now that doctors are very well adept at dealing with the situation, hopefully without a full fusion of the lumbar spine.
If you've been injured and need help, Dwyer Williams Charkoss Attorneys will get you the settlement you deserve. Experience gets results.